Okay, Brendan, we are live.
All right.
Thank you for joining me today. I love doing these sort of wellness interviews and conversations. And we met, I guess, I don't know, at least a year ago through our mutual
Mhm.
friends, Dr. Darren Davidson and Dr. Michael Mantell. And you've been on that journey of sort of physician wellness along with lots of other things. So I'm so happy to share you with everyone today and talk about how you came to be a doctor of sport and performance psychology and also a teacher in the schools in Chicago and yoga instructor. So welcome. And why don't you just share about how you got on your journey of yoga, mindfulness, wellness, and getting your degree?
Well, thank you. First off, I appreciate being here. This is great. I've really enjoyed collaborating with you, and especially having you as a friend. It's been really cool to meet some of these people through LinkedIn who've opened my eyes to a whole other world that I never imagined I'd be part of. So I really enjoy the challenges. I enjoy meeting new people, and it's been a lot of fun. So how I got to where I am, it's so long. I don't think we have enough time, but my mother was an educator. I always wanted to get involved in teaching and coaching. Some of my best experiences who helped me become who I am were because of really dedicated teachers and really dedicated coaches. And through that, I developed a love of learning. And unfortunately, it came a lot later in my life than it did earlier. But sometimes those hard lessons are the best ones. And I got into sport form psychology by working with people from challenging backgrounds. And I always noticed it wasn't necessarily their talent that was holding them back,
Hmm.
that there are other things in their life, maybe environmental, maybe personal. And I really wanted to learn how I could help them function better as a person and then for make them a better either student or athlete. And that's really kind of my mission with yoga is optimal functioning through self-efficacy. How do we teach people how to manage some of the challenges in their life, or maybe the challenges of learning a skill, and limit or lessen some of the barriers of entry, not only on the micro but also on the macro level.
Mhm.
So I work with leaders as well, how to create optimal organizations and organizational alignment to see how we can help people be their best, not quickly in a rush, but quick enough so that amotivation or stagnation or quitting doesn't set in.
Mhm. And don't you feel like these days we're all sort of athletes in our own realm, whether it is the business sector, entrepreneurial life, an athlete, musician, just anybody in the workforce these days because of pandemic, everything sort of shifted so quickly and we did become sort of like everybody moved off whatever bench they were sitting on and like got thrown into a game of sorts and we had to spend the past couple of years figuring it all out. So I think that it's interesting that, and I'd love to hear your insights on how, like, Darren Davidson talks about how a physician is an athlete of sorts, but I feel like a teacher is as well. And especially, you know, a lot of parents had to become remote teachers, and teachers like you had to work, Herculean, efforts to keep their students at a certain pace going, during pandemic. So will you talk a little bit about what you saw during pandemic and and now also athletes are becoming more vocal about their mental health challenges, and which I think is so helpful in destigmatizing mental health issues. So I put a lot out there, but start wherever you'd like.
Well, as far as pandemic and even athletes, I really feel that people have let down the guard of I have to be perfect all the time. Human beings are messy people, and even some of who we thought might be the most tough, the most sure-minded, most physically tough, through this ordeal that we all went through, people started speaking up like, no, I'm having a hard time too. I think that really it brought people closer together, but it dispelled the myth of what mental toughness or what high performers do, or people who achieve great things. A lot of what people see was the end product. And I think people started unpeeling the layer, saying that I didn't get here by magic. If this was an abracadabra moment, I would do it for you. And I think that that really gave people new inspiration on what they might be able to achieve. And a little bit of impetus to say, life's short,
Mhm.
that I better go start chasing these dreams that I want. And it's okay to ask for help on how to achieve them. And that was one of the good things that I think the pandemic did for us. It really, we had a very comfortable life, and it made people kind of rethink about how we're going about stuff. And even some of the work that I've done with Darren and Michael and Dr. Adam Harrison about physician wellness, these are some of the smartest, most robust people in the world, and they're struggling the most. So, I mean, it also offered an opportunity to find out how we can do things better. If I made a joke in my conversation with Adam that our doctors are Navy SEALs of the healthcare world, are Navy SEALs of wellness, and if they're not doing well, it's not because they're unequipped or they're unable to handle the challenge. It's because
Mhm.
we might not be doing the best job of supporting them through those challenges.
Yeah, and I think that these conversations that you have are so inspiring to help other people step up and say that they need help. And it doesn't have to be, a diagnosed illness or a mental illness or, clinical depression. I think what's important at this time, with this in this stage of life post pandemic, is that we can all just say, yeah, things have changed, and my perspective on time and the way that our work and life, those boundaries are so blurred. And so I think it's just so important to have these conversations where people say, yeah, I'm having trouble managing my time. It's making me feel more frustrated. And stress management, and just becoming more self aware about how to balance things. And so, how do you, and also, I love that you teach yoga. And, I've been doing yoga for 30 some odd years. And I feel like that's also such a great moving meditation and a great way to move your body and to clear your mind. And so, why don't you talk about a little bit about your style of up dog doc yoga? I love that name.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I want to reestablish that optimal functioning. I got in after I graduated. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go work with athletes. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna take the world by storm. And I started realizing that I'd rather develop people before I develop high performing athletes. I'd rather help people function optimally, opposed to achieving these crazy feats that a very small percentage of people achieve. One of my favorite sayings in the world comes from the New Zealand All Blacks. I'm an avid rugby fan. I played rugby. I coached rugby, big part of my life. And New Zealand All Blacks say we want people to be good people first, and then be good All Blacks. How do we nourish the soul? How do we nourish the person? And when we take care of that, now we'll transcend onto the field. And that's really what I've done with yoga. And the best part about me as a yoga teacher is I'm not that good at yoga. I'm not. I'm more of a hatha and yin guy. I do
Mhm.
it more for recovery, refocusing, and relaxation than I do to go inverted and do a headstand. I can't do a crow. I definitely can't do a headstand. Somehow, some way, I'm able to kind of do a wheel that was good for a 40-year-old man. But I it's amazing how that has helped me. And I try to share that with young people who might not be introduced to the practice. And I try to introduce it in a very palatable, welcoming way that takes the intimidation out of it, because there is yoga that you can do that is extremely complicated, intimidating, and hard. But there's also hatha and yin yoga that is very beginner, very entry level, and is beneficial to even the most seasoned practitioners, but it's not deterring to people who might be curious and exploring the practice. And working with people from all different backgrounds and all different ages and ability levels, this has kind of been my own little brand of yoga that I try to do it for people who might be new to the practice, opposed to people who are 30-year practitioners. And I think bringing more people in the fold will do better for the greater good. Where if you are a seasoned yoga practitioner, you know where to go and find some of the Ashtanga yoga, the core power yoga, or maybe a heavy vinyasa. But I try to meet them where they're at and get them excited about yoga, help them find that homeostasis, not only through yoga, but in their own life. And hopefully that opens the door to maybe taking yoga further or developing some sort of other exercise practice, so weightlifting, cardio, sport, whatever it might be.
Yeah, I love that. I love your philosophy about it because whenever I meet someone that says, yeah, yoga's not for me, I always say, what do you mean? There are so many different modalities, just like breath. There is a breath tool that will work for you. You just have to try different ones. And even though I've been practicing yoga forever, don't forget there are different phases of life. Like my shoulders now from too many chaturangas in bad alignment are sort of sore. So I'm not great at doing wheel anymore either. And so that's what I love about yoga, though. There's still all these other poses that feel good and that maybe are new to me now that I didn't really like 30 years ago. And it never gets old because there's always a different place on the spectrum, if you will, for yoga and like I used to never be able to sit still through a yin class 25 years ago. And now I love those. For people who don't know, yin is the more restorative poses where you just focus on relaxing into a certain pose for several moments at a time. And it's deep work.
Yeah, deep breath.
Yeah, it's hard because you're just sitting and steeping in one position and maybe your hip is opening, but it's sore while it's opening. And so, yeah, I love the way that you make it accessible and customizable because there is a modality of yoga for everyone. And I feel like breath is the component, at least for me in yoga, that brought it together with the mind and body. Do you think so?
Well, early on, that's not. So I got into yoga about 20 years ago, and I was a college football player, and I was looking for an edge. I could barely. This is embarrassing. I could barely grab my own ankle. I remember I was like flailing around, and the instructor came up to me and whispered, "She goes, sweetie, child's pose." Oh yeah, oh yeah. So I kind of got into it that way, and I've always remembered that there might be people in the class who uh, struggle in some areas, and we're looking to do it over a long period of time, opposed to immediate satisfaction. But when I got into teaching yoga and it paired up with my sports psychology background, that's when I really started getting the mental aspect of it. That's when I really started getting into talking about the neuromodulators that are released when you do a yoga session: dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, the GABA neurotransmitters that are released, and how that really helped people be in a better place to go then interact with the world. So I'm bringing back that word homeostasis, where I'm a big fan or big believer in the idea from Dr. Dan Siegel that our whole world is relationships. It's relationships to ourselves, other people, places, stimuli, things, whatever you name. And I feel that, and research supports that, if you're in a good place and you're able to develop, you're in homeostasis, you're in that ventral vagal state. And we don't have to get into polyvagal theory, but I want to drop that for Dr. Davison. When you're in that ventral vagal state, you're better at receiving the world. You're better at connecting with stimuli. You're in a better physiological and a better mental space. And when we're creating better connections, not only with ourselves, but other things, we're going to move through the world in a much better and more productive way.
So true. And how do your high school students, um, accept the yoga practice? Like, is it something you have to convince them to do? And then, I'd love to hear about how they take to it.
So I shared this with them today. We did a lesson on the old brain versus the new brain. How we talked about the old reptilian brain regulates more of the autonomic nervous system, and the new brain, the prefrontal cortex, the neocortex, the outer area of our brain, is more for metacognition, more for operating at a high level, and it's pretty much thinking through challenging problems, projecting out the future, etc. And I told them today, we had that lesson yesterday, and I said I was blown away how now the young people are how receptive they were to such a lofty and difficult topic, but how they process it and were able to synthesize it not only in a discussion post and answering questions in a written way, but they did it verbally as well. And a lot of verbal communication has kind of gone by the wayside with technology and the way that people interact now. And we're doing old brain versus new brain, polyvagal theory. We're learning about the autonomic nervous system. We're learning about the health benefits of yoga. And they have been so awesome. It's been incredibly energizing to go to work. And not only have they been great with the asana and the physical practice, but they're really taking the mental practice. And I haven't found necessarily the best measure on how to maybe find out the efficacy it might be having later down the road, or even in their academic or athletic career. But just from the anecdotal feedback, it's been really, really, really just fun to be around. It's fun. I'm a dork. I love learning, and I love being in those collaborative, fun situations. And I think it's even more energizing when I have a 15 or 16 or 17-year-old give me a perspective or re-explain polyvagal theory to me in a way that I didn't really think about. And I'm like, holy, this is unbelievable.
Wow.
Then they've been great. It's been really, really cool. I'm very thankful for the people I work with. They're special kids.
Is the yoga program built into this high school's curriculum, or is it only for the athletes?
No, it's built. I teach 4 yoga classes a day.
Wow.
So it got started in 2013, kind of as a pilot program. And then my colleague, Mary Noren, did an unbelievable job and built the class out where people were dying to get in it. And we have another yoga teacher. Well, I got a knock on my door. I've always practiced yoga and intermittently, and sometimes it's been more in my life and sometimes it's been less, like anybody. But I got a knock on the door like, hey, Brendan. I was like, oh, what did I do? Or, what do you want? Kind of type of thing. And they offered me this to move in and get certified to teach yoga. And they were asking me with a lot of trepidation. I was like, yeah, I'll do it. This is great. So from there, that was about 3 years ago. And from there, we've expanded from 10 sections of yoga to 17.
Wow.
So we have about 40 kids in a class times 17. We're teaching yoga to almost 200 people, 250 people a day.
That's phenomenal. I wish we had it in yoga class when I was in high school, because it's like it is something that everybody should learn. It's awesome that it's part of the curriculum there. I hope that people can follow your footsteps and integrate it into other high schools, because it is, I mean, with social media and everything these days, I think also your expertise in yoga along with psychology is such a great pairing for teenagers to better understand. Not only, I mean, had never even heard of the vagus nerve until a few years ago when I did some research for my book. And but the vagus nerve is the most important nerve basically in our entire bodies for relaxation and calming. And it's something every teenager and every adult really should know about, how to access that, how to influence it with breath and with motion and with physical fitness. And so I think it's such a great background that you have with both psychology and yoga. I think your students are super lucky to have that.
Well, thank you. And I'm lucky that I was given the opportunity to do it. the people I work for, but my colleagues were going forth and doing this when I wasn't really involved in it, and I'm kind of on the back end of it. So I unfortunately was not part of a lot of the heavy lifting, but for them to have that insight and foresight to offer this to people and kind of buck some of the unpopular myths about it, that oh yeah, this isn't hard work, or this isn't a it's not beneficial. And I think with the amount of people wanting to take the class, I think we've definitely changed a few minds, where I have staff members jumping in my class to do it with the kids on their off period.
Love it.
What more powerful than seeing your math teacher? One of my good friends who's a head track coach, he's a math teacher. He jumped in my 4th period class today. Rolled on his mat, didn't say a word. And the cool thing was the kids didn't even react. They're like, all right, yep, there's someone here to do yoga with us. Great.
Love it. And do they share with you how over the years yoga has influenced the way that they sort of move through their day?
Oh, yeah, especially when we do a lot of our psychology lessons, they talk about how beneficial yoga has been. I would like something a little bit more concrete, and I'm a data guy, so I love would love to look at the data. But the anecdotal benefits is overwhelming, and there's a reason why I keep going. Education is a very reciprocal thing. I always like to say the teacher will appear when the student is ready.
Yeah.
And although we're adults and we have to be the driver of enthusiasm, we have to be a driver of motivation, it makes your job very easy when you're working with people who are showing up with that same those same feelings and those same emotions. And it's a cool thing to be a part of.
Yeah, I love that the teachers are showing up too, because the stress that the teachers have is tremendous, and the fact that they can just pop into and take advantage of your yoga class is such a benefit at that school. So you recently launched UpDogDoc.com.
Well, just UpDoc.
UpDoc.
It's like a playoff of UpDog.
Down Doc.
I was gonna go with Down Doc, but that seemed kind of like a bummer. So
I like UpDoc. It's like habitual that I'm adding the dog in there.
But yeah, I wanted something a little bit more uplifting, a little bit more positive. I was looking for a play on words, and I don't know why nobody picked that before, but I was like, all right, this URL is available. Let's go.
I love it. I love it. So people can go, because you give some classes that are no cost and people can just watch, right?
They're all no cost. And starting November 14th, I'm going to start streaming live yoga sessions from my house. So I'll probably do it at 7 p.m. I got to work around the baby schedule. But yeah, it'll be Monday evenings and free. I like sharing this with people. Again, the way I do it, I found a lot of success that people who have a lot of experience or none are enjoying the palatability of the yoga session. So I just want to share this with people, and I want to give back and help them be the best that they can be. As I know, it's an ongoing process with me. Days that I don't do yoga, which is incredibly rare. I'm probably 350 days a year. Some people are even more, but days that I don't do yoga, I'm not my best self. And the commitment to the practice, if you have a nice way to do it and an inviting way to do it, it makes it a lot easier. And I've been working out my whole life, playing sports my whole life, but I've never been too tired for a half-hour yin yoga session. I've never said, there's no way I'm doing this. And talking about some of the most tough people in the world, David Goggins is famous for pulling off all these crazy feats, but he's also pretty transparent, where he'll look at his shoes for 30 minutes and then finally convince himself to tie him up. I've never had that with yoga, and I hope that I can deliver sessions and for people in a way that they don't feel that way either. We're like, all right, I got a half hour before bed, or I just had dinner, or whatever it might be, or I wake up in the morning, pop on an UpDoc session, and I can go get my yoga for free in my own home. And if they're nervous about how they look, or they're nervous about starting to practice and them not being good, they're in their own home. So the
Mhm.
only person you have to worry about is you. And hopefully that builds competency, and with competency comes confidence.
I love that. It's such a great service that you're offering. And you'll be posting it on LinkedIn on your sessions. And also, what are your social platforms where people can learn about that?
So I'm off the grid other than LinkedIn. I'm more of just a LinkedIn person, and I'm trying. I will expand eventually. My brother-in-law is a bodybuilder, and he kind of got on me about not being on more platforms. But I've talked about this that my videos aren't the best in the world, but number one, they're free. Number two, they're very accessible and very, very inviting.
They're wonderful.
I want to grow it organically.
Yes.
I want people to see how the videos have changed, how things have developed over time. That I started doing this. I had an idea. My first video wasn't very good, and now this is where I'm at. And I think that's very important for people to grasp that no one starts out on third base. That a lot of us have to work up to where we're at, and it's okay with having um, things that are more authentic than perfect. And I quoted you earlier on LinkedIn today.
Yeah, but your sessions are wonderful, and it's like if you had to create such a polished video, you'd never have them up. You don't have time for
Yeah.
that, and so I feel like it is so much more valuable for you just to turn on the video and offer everyone your incredible expertise in both yoga and psychology, and let them experience it for free.
Yep.
I think that's amazing. Eddie Faber is with us on LinkedIn Live, and he says, "Glad to hear you're leading by example and giving the high school kids a taste of yoga at such an early age. I could not imagine Coach Zimmer or Doyle promoting something like this when we were in school." And then he said, "Give yourself some credit." And I'm with him on that.
Well, thanks, Ed. Ed and I grew up together. We played high school football together. I was one of the linemen, and he worked his butt off. And I appreciate him showing up and supporting us. And it's really cool when you have people from your past come and see how you changed a lot, see how you've developed, but also support you through that. And I appreciate that. That's really cool. And I cannot imagine Coach Doyle getting into an up dog or a down dog, and oh man, all hell would have broke loose. That a wonderful man, but he is definitely an old school guy. So I don't know if that was necessarily in our practice plan.
That's funny. It's so true though, and people like David Goggins. I read his book last year. Very inspiring. He's one of those like ultra. Will run 100 miles a day, or whatever. Eddie says he's laughing. But and so yeah, I'm inspired by David Goggins too. But I will never do any of those things like that he does. But he inspires me in the way that he does. His level of self-awareness inspired me, and it made me at least also look at things as a challenge, accepting challenge more. And it feels good to get outside your comfort zone, push yourself a little bit. You don't have to be so extreme, but it's still always about just getting outside of your comfort zone. And I feel like your classes are coming, your free offerings are at such a great time now too, because yoga is pretty much mainstream now. Mm-hmm. And there are also tons of athletes and people like David Goggins and other people who are interested and longtime practitioners now of yoga or mindfulness in some form of physical fitness. And so I think that you don't have to educate people on that. People understand the benefits of yoga, but what people, I think, not everybody understands that, they think that yoga might look a certain way, and it doesn't. And so that's why I encourage people to look at your classes, and especially because they're in the evenings and winter's coming up, and as the days get shorter, those yin practices in the evening are so important. Will you talk a little bit about the benefits or the importance of sleep, and then how an evening yoga class can really help us to sleep better, regulate circadian rhythm?
Mm-hmm. Well, especially with yin and hatha yoga, I really focus on the parasympathetic nervous system and the neuromodulators that come with that relax people. Um, when we're in a calm state, we don't have that unwind period. We don't have that rumination that might happen, especially at night. And hopefully, that with some of the diaphragmatic breathing, with focusing on putting our body in a calm state and lowering our heart rate before bed, uh, with self efficacy. This isn't happening by magic. As you know, as a breath coach, this is a concerted, planned out, and real scientific thing. And hopefully that puts people in a better position to fall asleep quicker and get more sleep. Because as Americans, especially, and anyone in the modern world, we're stealing from Peter to pay Paul, and we're doing it with our sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And the three pillars of fitness are sleep, exercise, and nutrition. And a lot of times we're borrowing from a bunch of those, but try to make up for other deficiencies, or we're looking for hacks. And the only way sometimes is through. There's a lot of, not to bring up Darren again, but Darren did a great thing about, yeah, hacks are good, but they're only short-term band-aids. We have to develop foundational skills, foundational knowledge, and routines related to those, and applicable tools to help us function at our best, help us perform optimally. And when you really focus on those three pillars of health and wellness and fitness, and you're going to realize that you're going to interface better with the world. You're going to be in a calmer state. You're going to be a better leader. You're going to be a better husband. You're going to be a better learner. You're going to be a better, so I said husband from my point of view, but a better wife, a better significant other, whatever it might be. And if we can develop, and I'm not shooting for utopia, but if we can develop these skills of self-efficacy in people and help them regulate their own life and moderate their own life better, who knows what can be accomplished. Maybe I'm a dreamer, but I think that when people are at their best, that permeates out into the world. And then good things happen when that happens. And that's one of my missions, not only as an educator and a coach and sport form psychology practitioner, but it's what I want to do as a person. And I'm thankful that I've had people along my life, teachers, coaches, mentors, friends who've helped me get to the level where I am, because Lord knows it wasn't perfect, and Lord knows it was a long and hard road, but the path of redemption is paved with a lot of hard work and a lot of purposeful attention, and that's one of my missions in life.
Yep, I'm a dreamer with you. I think that the time is now where people need to sort of take agency, take control of their nervous system, and it's something that we aren't taught when we're younger, and it is like a human superpower.
Yeah.
So my last question to you is can you talk a little bit about the mental component of yoga? How does it come through the physical fitness that we can be kinder to ourselves mentally after practicing a little bit of yoga?
Yeah. So when you do yoga, a litany of things happen. Number one, your posture improves. So when your posture improves, your body starts moving better, is more aligned, is moving better. The better you move, the less likelihood you have of getting hurt or your hamstring working harder than your calf. And then you have a problem in your low back. So when people are feeling good, that transcends in how they behave. I really try to help people use oxygen more efficiently, as you do, by diaphragm breathing, nasal breathing. How are we getting oxygen to our muscles and tissues to help propel us forward, help give us the energy to overcome some of the challenges that we might have in our lives. Then you have other things like it lowers your blood pressure through vasodilation. It lowers your blood sugar. It helps improve your immune system by lessening the effect of it. Lessening the work that your limbic system uses. You're just an overall happier person. You have those better connections. You interface with the world better. You're a better learner. Your hippocampus and your prefrontal cortex are going to function more optimally, and that in turn will allow for more neuroplasticity to happen. you lessen cortisol. When you have less cortisol, less adrenaline, less norepinephrine in your system, you are able to see the world in a more broad, a more clearer way, opposed to through a guise of they say seeing red, seeing it through anger, seeing a narrow focus. Your optical nerve narrows when you have cortisol, adrenaline, and norepinephrine in your brain. And I mean, you brought this up in your TED talk, not to villainize those neuromodulators or those neurotransmitters. We need that. Every time you go on the air, you probably have a little bit of cortisol, a little bit of adrenaline flowing through your system. I know I do. But we need to learn how to manage that so it is a acute thing and not a chronic thing.
Yeah.
And then we can use that to help lessen anxiety and most importantly, mitigate stress through purposeful autonomic arousal. Mm-hmm. How do we know what state we're in? That goes back to polyvagal theory. How do we prep ourselves physiologically and mentally to receive the world in the best way so that we go ahead and interact with the world? And we're using the autonomic nervous system appropriately. But like I said, we're not perfect. Human beings aren't perfect. If I'm in a dorsal vagal state, how do I get myself back up the ladder into a ventral vagal state? Or if I'm in a sympathetic state, how do I get myself back into ventral vagal where I'm operating in a more even keel way? So these are the things that I really try to share with people. And I try to process a lot of the hard science and give it to them in a very digestible way, in a way that really anyone can understand. And that's not insult their intelligence, but I don't want to bog them down with the pedantic. I don't want to bog them down with things that might create a motivation. Again, going back to what one of my missions is as a doctor of sport and performance psychology, how do we lessen barriers of entry so that people can achieve what they want to achieve, or groups can find success that they're looking for, and making that as seamless and streamlined as possible.
Mm-hmm. Well, you do that, and I can't wait for your free classes. I will be there in the evenings doing that. Cool. I love it. And I never knew really the how or the why behind why I felt so great after yoga classes for so many years. And I think it's nice that you explain it, but not in a digestible way. And so, and you just make it warm and welcoming for everyone. And I think your work is incredible. You're such a beautiful human on a mission. And so thank you for sharing your knowledge today. And I really appreciate what you do and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Very likewise, Sammy. I appreciate the work you're doing. I love working with you. I love learning from you. And it's really cool that I'm like 2 degrees away from Oprah now. I didn't think that would ever happen in my life. I don't think I'll ever get past. I'll never get to 1 degree, but I'm happy. Reasonable expectations, and no, I'm very lucky and appreciative of the LinkedIn community. Number one, the things I'm learning from people, but most importantly, the friends I made. Like I never thought in the wildest dreams that I'd be connected and associated with people from a learning perspective, but more importantly, a friend perspective. Dr. Mattel and I went and had lunch one day when I was in San Diego. I'm like, how am I sitting here with this guy? This is mind-boggling. And
I agree. Technology can be truly wonderful like that when it really leads to the human connection. And I'm grateful for being connected to you.
Absolutely.
Likewise. So thank you, Brendan. And we'll see you at updoc.com.
Yes. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you. Take care.